breaking news at this moment, Israel launching a ground operation in Lebanon. The military just announcing it's conducting raids against Hezbollah along Lebanon's southern border. I want to go straight to Jeremy Diamond, who's in northern Israel, along that border with Lebanon. And Jeremy, obviously, you're there, you're in your vest. This is a major escalation that we're seeing. What do you understand is happening right now?
No question about it, Aaron. For months now, we have wondered whether this conflict between Israel and Hezbollah might escalate into an all-out war, whether we might one day see Israeli troops crossing into the sovereign country of Lebanon. And indeed, tonight, that is what we are seeing. Israeli ground troops supported by artillery, which you just heard right as I was saying that in the background, being fired from here in northern Israel, a couple miles away from the border, and heading straight for Lebanon, which is behind me, behind those hills there. And indeed, tonight, the Israeli military is confirming that they are carrying out this ground operation. They are characterizing it as, quote, limited, localized, and targeted ground raids based on precise intelligence against Hezbollah targets along the border. I've been told that these operations are concentrated on Lebanese villages close to the border, where the Israeli military has gathered intelligence and believes that there are indeed Hezbollah targets there. Now, I've reported earlier today that the Israeli military had already begun carrying out special operations in recent days to gather intelligence in preparation for this ground offensive. And tonight, what the Israeli military is confirming is that a force of its troops is indeed crossing into Lebanon, supported by artillery fire, supported by the Air Force, and is indeed carrying out this ground operation. They want to characterize this, of course, as a limited ground operation. That was the understanding that Israeli officials reached with the White House, making clear that it would remain limited. But of course, once you have troops going from one country into another country, there is no telling where this can go from here, Aaron. And certainly with Israeli troops now going into Lebanon, going after Hezbollah on the ground, following the major escalations that we have watched over the course of the last 2 weeks, with the enormous increase in Israeli airstrikes in southern Lebanon, in eastern Lebanon, in the Lebanese capital of Beirut, the killing of Hassan Nasrallah. I think it's very clear right now that this conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has indeed escalated into war. Aaron.
All right. So, Jeremy, let me just ask you, though, and I know we just heard that artillery as you were speaking. Have you sort of seen any explosions or heard anything else? Or, I mean, how are you able to sort of feel the difference where you are? And just a note to everybody, I mean, they're doing this obviously in the early hours of the morning. It's almost 2:30 in the morning along that Israeli-Lebanon border.
Yeah, when we arrived here in northern Israel, just a couple miles from the border several hours ago, people here told us that this was the first night that they had heard consistent and frequent artillery fire coming from this area going into Lebanon. At the time, it wasn't clear to us whether that was preparations for a ground operation or the beginnings of that operation itself. But now that we've learned that this operation actually began a few hours ago, and in addition to the sounds, we have actually been able to see some of the explosions happening over the hill right behind me, which is Lebanon. Indeed there, as you were hearing yet another artillery round going over. We have seen some of those explosions happening inside of Lebanon. We also saw flares earlier today, and we are hearing the whir of a helicopter in the distance. All of these, of course, signs of the multiple ways in which the Israeli military is carrying out this operation, from the air, from the ground, and with support, of course, from armored and artillery forces being held further back. We have also seen, of course, an array of tanks and armored personnel vehicles along the side of a highway heading north towards the Lebanese border. As that artillery fire continues in the distance, we aren't able to see those explosions right now, but there is a bit of light behind that hill, which tells us that there are either flares or explosions happening behind there, which is, of course, inside of Lebanon. Aaron?
All right, so let me, Jeremy, just to understand here, because obviously this is a crucial moment, and they're trying to describe this as limited, that they're going to do something specific, right? Not the opposite of some mass all of the tanks are parading over, of that mass buildup that of course we all saw so visibly along the Gaza border. But as you point out, this opens the door to the who knows factor once you start having soldiers in. Is there any sense of, to the point you were making, who is going in, how many are going in, are they staying in, or is all of this really not known at this hour?
Well, we can glean a couple things from this statement and from the information that I've gathered from speaking to sources. And one of those things is that, first of all, those special operations had already been happening in the days before this. And when the Israeli military is coming out and saying a ground operation has begun in the last few hours, they are no longer just talking about special operations. They're talking about something more significant. Now, I was cautioned by some sources that this is not a very large force going into Lebanon, but they wouldn't say exactly how many forces there are. And as I've said before, they are incentivized to continue to characterize this as limited, as targeted, as small. And I would also note that when Israel began its ground operation in Gaza, which of course we've now seen Israeli troops pour throughout the Gaza Strip, invading the entire strip effectively, at the time they also characterized that as a limited ground operation that was slowly expanding. And of course it ultimately expanded into an all-out invasion. I'm not suggesting that's going to be the case here with Lebanon. We don't know how deep this is going to go. Some former generals who I've spoken to suggested that Israel should perhaps capture 8 miles of territory into Lebanon to remove the threat of anti-tank guided missiles from the area of northern Israel, where some 60,000 residents have been evacuated. It's not clear if Israel is going to go that deep yet, but again, we will see. I expect that we will see in the coming days as this operation will likely expand, will go deeper into southern Lebanon. The question, of course, is how deep and for how long will troops be there, and whether or not they could get bogged down in a fight against Hezbollah.
All right, of course, Lebanon, a sovereign country. All right, thank you very much, Jeremy Diamond. We're going to be going back to you, of course, as you get more information and depending on what you hear and see there. As we heard that outgoing artillery fire from Israel into Lebanon behind Jeremy over these past few moments, Fareed Zakaria joins me now, host of Fareed Zakaria GPS. So Fareed, you hear Jeremy's reporting that this is obviously goes beyond the special operations forces, which have been operating over that border, that this is bigger, but the Israelis are describing it as limited and not as an invasion. What do you think is actually happening here?
I think what the Israelis are doing is implementing a strategy that they have long planned and held in abeyance. They have, for a long time, thought very seriously about what to do about the threat they face from Hezbollah, the constant rocket fire, the way in which Hezbollah has been able to drive out maybe 150,000 Israelis from their homes in northern Israel. And the plan was to do something like this, which was to begin with that lightning communication strike, the cell phones and pagers exploding, then artillery and aerial bombardment that would essentially try to destroy a whole bunch of the weapons caches and target mid-level leadership, and then go on and target the high-level leadership. But to complete the job, they do have to go in to get at those weapons caches. Hezbollah has its own network of tunnels, much like Hamas. They have to do all of that. So far, Israel was always deterred from doing this because of the fear of Hezbollah retaliation, Iranian retaliation, the retaliation of a kind of the axis of resistance that Iran had always talked about. But what they have done is they have pressed forward, taken the risk, and they have proved that that axis of resistance and Iran is more of a paper tiger.
So let me just ask you, I mean, obviously, and what they did, even on the pagers, we understand hacking into odometers of Hezbollah leaders' cars and possibly even into their smart TVs to hear their voices. I mean, the level of intelligence involved is truly incredible to contemplate. But yet, as Jeremy said, once you actually have soldiers and human beings going over the border, you get into you don't know what's going to happen from there. How confident are they that they know what's going to happen from here, that this limited ground operation remains that way, as opposed to something which it appears very clear that they don't want and maybe couldn't even take on, which would be a full-scale invasion or some kind of an occupation?
Yeah, it's very risky. But look, they faced a problem, which was they had Hezbollah raining rockets on them. They were trying to figure out what to do, and they took this calculated gamble that the Iranians were going to be, at the end of the day, more cautious, that the Houthis were going to be more cautious, that Hezbollah would not be able to quickly retaliate. And so far, that has proven right. I think what you're seeing is that Israel is the superpower militarily of the Middle East today. And it is able to strike at will in a way that it's very hard to retaliate. You raise, Aaron, the crucial issue. It's one thing to be able to get rid of bad guys. It's another to figure out what to do with the space, the land. That's what we discovered after Saddam Hussein, after Muammar Gaddafi, after the Taliban. It's what Israel is discovering in Gaza after they got rid of, the initial ground invasion. So there, you're right, and I would I would hope they understand that the best thing would be a quick mop-up operation and then withdraw back. But it's always very hard because once you break it, you buy it, as Colin Powell famously said about Iraq.